You're listening to the Contented Catcast from St. Claus Academy with Lisa Sinnott. Email stclausacademy@gmail.com.
So I'm really delighted to be here with Claire Stairs today. Claire runs Feline Behaviour Consultancy, Cats at Heart, Feline Behaviour and Training. She's got a postgraduate diploma from the University of Edinburgh. She studied clinical animal behaviour and she graduated there in November. Congratulations, Claire. Thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. So we're talking a bit about cats today, which is what we talk about on this podcast. Could you tell us about any cats that you have in your life at the moment, or any cats that have inspired you? I imagine there's a few.
So I currently share my home with 5 cats. Yeah. So 3 rescued domestic short hairs. So I've got my eldest, who is Bimble. And then I have got my newest 2 kittens that I got in the summer, who are Bertie and Katie. Bertie's deaf.
Oh, bless him.
And then I've got a Siamese called Daisy May, who's asleep behind me at the moment, and a Maine Coon called Horatio.
Oh, what a great name. Oh, so yeah.
Busy house with cats, but it's lovely. I didn't get my first cat until I was 16. I'd always absolutely loved cats, but sort of grew up with dogs. I had to try and placate me, but when I got to 16 I was like, right, I'm getting a cat, and had George, who was a RSPCA rescue. And then haven't stopped from there really. I've had lots of cats over the past few sort of 20 odd years or more.
Yeah, because you did lots of work with cats, like with rescue cats on a helpline, didn't you, as well?
Yeah, so I volunteered for Cats Protection as a supporting owners volunteer. So people are having problems and thinking about relinquishing their cat, and I try and sort of talk to them and help them through, and sometimes there are things that we can put in place that means they can actually keep the cat, which is fantastic.
Yeah. So some people have obviously got in touch with you on the support line, I imagine, for cats going to the bathroom outside their litter tray. Is that right?
Definitely. I would say probably in my own consultancy and also on the Cats Protection helpline, maybe 2/3 or more of the people that contact me, they're having some sort of issue with the cat not using the litter tray.
Sure. So there can be obviously lots of different reasons that a cat that's not using the litter tray. Sometimes medical, sometimes emotional, often both. But from kind of litter tray perspective, in the sense of things that we can do to make sure it's a bathroom a cat wants to use, what tips would you give to someone? Because obviously there's so many different litter trays on the market. It can be quite overwhelming, I imagine, for someone going into a pet shop or looking online to actually know which one's right for their cat.
Absolutely. And I think probably one of the biggest problems is that most of the cat litter trays that are on the market are too small.
Yeah.
So I would say you want a litter tray that's at least 1.5 times the length of your cat. Most trays that are for sale in pet shops are a lot smaller than that. I can understand that people don't necessarily want to have a massive tray sitting in the rooms, but really for your cat, it's ideal that they can have enough room to stand up, turn around. You know, they're not sort of trying to balance in this tiny tray, which could potentially tip over, and then that can frighten them and make them reluctant to use the tray again. It needs to be able to be deep enough that they can have a real good dig around in there. So yeah, I mean, there are some trays that you can buy that are big enough. You want to look for the ones that are called jumbo or extra, extra large. But otherwise, I say to sort of think outside the box, if you will.
Yeah.
And look at things like underbed storage containers. Go to, somewhere like IKEA, you can pick up the really big, shallow underbed storage containers, which are great. And you can sort of, if you've got a cat, some cats will sort of pee up the sides, so you want something with taller sides on it, then you can just cut down and make an entrance hole that's lower for them in a storage container.
Yeah. And what's your opinions on kind of covered trays? I saw a covered tray, which I thought would be quite nice for a multi-cat household, because some people just won't. They really don't like the tray without the cover. But it was a clear one, so at least the cat could see that the other cat was coming, which I thought was a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, most cats, I think, would prefer an open tray. A cover on a tray can trap in smells and things, and it's not always terribly nice for them. If they are anxious, if they're in a multi-cat household, then, like you said, if they've got a solid cover over the top, and the ones that have the sort of cat flap entrance as well, another cat can sit outside and ambush them. Again, it can make them really reluctant to use the tray. If they're feeling really anxious, they're going to potentially get trapped in there or not be able to access it. If you desperately want to use one, then one with a clear top on it, so the cat can at least sort of have a view around and see what's happening outside, is going to be better. But if you possibly can offer at least to have one that's open, I'd always say that's going to be the better way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of litter, what kind of things would you say to look out for? Because again, loads and loads of different litter on the market.
So many different types, and new ones kind of coming out all the time. I'd always say we need to sort of think about the ethology of the cat. So they are descended from the African wildcat, which is a desert-dwelling species. So cats generally prefer like a really soft, sandy substrate. That's the sort of thing that they would naturally use. Or if you sort of see them going outside, they tend to use really sort of fine soil, which is why people often find them going in their sort of raised beds or their pots and things. There are some out on the market out there which you just need to do a little bit of research. I'd always say go for an unscented litter. I know now you can get them in lavender and baby powder and all these kind of scents which appeal to us, but definitely don't appeal to cats. And again, that can put them off using the tray, and they'll unfortunately then go and find somewhere else that they prefer, which can quite often be on furniture and beds and things. So unscented and sort of the finest that you can find. Most cats prefer clumping litter. And that also makes it a lot easier for you to scoop out as well, because the other really important thing is your litter box hygiene. So you need to be scooping at least a couple of times a day. If you sort of think about if you ever walk into a public bathroom and people have been going in and out and not flushing the toilet, and turn around and go straight out, and cats feel exactly the same. If they're faced with a really dirty litter tray, they're not going to want to use it. I always compare it to like using a festival toilet. You just avoid it at all costs, and you'll go to the pub down the road and leave the festival because it's just not nice. I like the Intersand litter, which is unscented. They do baby powder and another one, I don't know why, and lavender. I don't know why they do that, but I find that really good. It traps the smell and it's clumping and it's nice and soft. I like Almo Nature.
I haven't heard of that one.
Sandy one, very, very fine. But all the cats that I've sort of introduced that to seem to love it. So.
Okay. Is that online?
Yeah, you can get it from Amazon and Zooplus and I think various other places have it. But they do too. They do a sort of granular one, which they recommend for cats with long hair. But my Maine Coon uses the very fine one, and he doesn't have any problems with it. So they all seem to like that. It's very soft on the paws, so if you've got a cat that's got a bit of osteoarthritis, and it's much more comfortable for them to stand on as well and squat. Yeah,
there's another one out there. I mean, that is, what's it called? It's the blue one, Catsan, and I find that very hard. It's very stony. I'm sure there's others out there that are stony as well, but just from my experience.
Some of the pelleted ones, if you stand on those, I think it would be like standing on Lego bricks.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, there's so much out there, isn't there? So what advice would you give to someone that cats urinated or weed outside the tray, maybe say on the bed or behind the sofa or anywhere that's not their tray?
I think the first thing is always to rule out any underlying health condition. If there's any change in your cat's behaviour, the first stop's always going to be the vet, just to have a health check. And if it is urinating or defecating outside the litter tray, then something like urinalysis, just to rule out. So there's lots of kind of underlying health conditions that can cause that behaviour. So things like urinary tract infections. One of the most common things is feline idiopathic cystitis, or we quite often call it stress cystitis. Also things like diabetes can cause your cat to not use the litter tray, or like we've already said, osteoarthritis, if they're finding it too hard to get into the tray, if the tray's got very high entry. You might suddenly find them toileting around the house as well. So it's important to kind of rule all those things out first before we then start looking at the behavioural side of things too.
Yeah, so with the urinalysis, vets to kind of recommend a certain, I can't actually remember the name of it, but litter that doesn't actually capture the urine, it doesn't clump it, and then you can extract the urine and give them a urine sample. Obviously there's other ways of doing it as well, but they can test, I guess like us, so much can be told from urine and bloods.
Absolutely. So I think there's Catcore and Kit for Cat, which is hydrophobic sand. So yeah, that's going to be the easiest way to get a urine sample from your cat. And then also to sort of watch out for things like, have you noticed any blood in the urine? Are they vocalising when they're trying to pee or poo? If it's painful, you might hear them crying out. Are they going back and forth to the tray but not actually producing anything? Those are the kind of signs to look out for. Licking themselves. And, particularly with male cats, it can be a medical emergency.
Yeah.
If they're unable to go to the toilet, they can get a blocked bladder, and that can be very serious. So immediate rush to the vet, even if it's out of hours, is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that could be life-threatening, can't it? And then from the behavioural side, what kind of reasons have you found cats can do this for? Obviously, it depends on the cat. Cat's individual, but what have you experienced in your experience?
So a lot of times it is stress or anxiety, and there can be many, many reasons for that. So often it's like a change in the physical or social environment. So quite often it can be a problem with another cat. So if you've introduced a new cat to the house, or sometimes if the relationship between two cats that have lived together for a long time has broken down for some reason, or quite often if there's an issue with an intruder cat. So you can find things like you'll potentially be having a cat that's going into the garden and looking in at your cat through the patio doors or through a window, and quite often I've had situations where the litter tray's been close to a door or window, and then the cat doesn't feel safe using it there anymore if they feel like they're being overlooked by another cat. I've had cats where they've not had a litter tray at all in the house and have usually gone and toileted outside, and then there's been a new cat that's moved into the neighbourhood, and suddenly they don't feel safe toileting outside anymore, so they come in and start toileting inside. Quite often it is on soft furnishings, just because we call those sort of items like sofas and beds scent so, because they smell of you, which is very comforting for your cat. So if they are feeling anxious, they're going to seek out places where they feel most secure, and quite often that's the places where you spend a lot of time.
Absolutely.
Their scent of their urine is also a comfort to them, so mixing that scent with your scent is going to be very comforting for them.
Yeah.
So quite often you'll find that, in a stressful situation, those are the kind of things that they'll target, or piles of clothes, or sort of towels in the bathroom.
That's right. Yeah, lots of things there to consider.
Sometimes it can... Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Sometimes it can be a change in routine. So, I think it was an issue quite a lot after COVID, where people have been around at home a lot where they hadn't before, and then suddenly they go back to work, and the cat maybe has a bit of anxiety, potentially even a bit of separation anxiety. I've definitely experienced that with a few cases. Sometimes it can be that they're marking their territory, so it's also important to differentiate between normal urinating where the cat's squatting and peeing, or if they're spraying. So a cat sort of stands up when they're spraying, and you'll see their tail quivering, and their sort of bum will move from side to side, and you'll get a mark on a wall usually, or a vertical surface. Whereas if they're squatting down and peeing, that's usually normal urination, but that can also be a marking behaviour as well.
And in terms of tips of introducing a new cat to your home, and thank you for all of that information, Claire, what would you give to people's kind of problem prevention?
So definitely it's a slow and managed introduction. So many times things go wrong because people just think, oh, put the two cats together and let them sort it out themselves, which just doesn't work. I mean, if it does work, you're incredibly lucky, but most of the time it won't work. Cats can form very strong relationships, positive relationships with other cats, but, generally they are a solitary species, they're solitary hunters, so, it takes sort of time and effort to make sure that introductions go well. So I'd always say start off with the new cat coming into the home, set up in a room of their own, a sanctuary room where they've got all the resources they need, so their litter tray, their food and water stations, lovely beds, perching places, toys, and initially have that door shut so that they're completely separate from the rest of the house, so that your cat can sort of have the rest of their territory as they normally do. And then start off by just doing scent exchange. Scent is so important for cats and the relationships that they form and how they communicate with each other. So it's taking a cloth, and I put it through like a boil wash with no detergent so that it smells completely neutral. And then just wiping it on the sort of cheeks and forehead of the new cat, and also doing the same for your resident cat too. So you're picking up those pheromones from the glands on their faces.
Yeah.
And then swapping the cloth between the two cats so that they have the opportunity to investigate them and start smelling. And you want to pair that with good things, so whether that's play or praise or like treats that they particularly like. So they're just starting to learn that scent means good things and it's not anything to be worried about.
Yeah.
When they're not reacting negatively to that, so you don't want any sort of hissing at the cloth or growling, then you can start with a visual barrier, so something like a baby gate or a pet gate. If you're using that, I'd put some mesh across it just so they can't stick paws through.
Yeah.
Or you can now buy mesh screens, which you can Velcro into the inside of a doorway, which I've found really good. They're almost like a tent in a mesh sheet with a zip around them, so you can kind of come in and out of the door. So it just means they can see each other, but there is a barrier there, so they feel a bit more secure.
Yeah.
So then on either side of the barrier, you can give them, I like to use things like licky mats and things. I know a lot of people say about feeding either side of the barrier. I'm not a big fan of that because I feel like your cat then feels they have no option but to be in close proximity to the other cat.
Because they're dinner
food,
time.
So that can, again, cause them some anxiety and a bit of frustration. So we want to avoid that. So definitely sort of food puzzles with treats in, recruit a friend or a partner, and then have one of you either side with each cat and be doing some interactive play. So they're aware of each other on either side of the barrier. And again, you're reinforcing it with good things, so they start thinking, nothing of any consequence happens when I'm here, and, nice things are happening. That cat's there, it's fine. And then sort of slowly start letting them come closer and closer on either side of the barrier. As long as everything's still remaining calm, they're either ignoring each other or sort of showing positive signs. You've got no sort of flicking tails or growling or hissing or flattened ears.
Yeah.
Then sort of take it step at a time, and then if things are still calm, you can start slowly letting them have some face-to-face contact, always supervised. So slowly opening the barrier sort of bit at a time, and letting them investigate each other. You can also do room swapping, so that will help again to start creating a group scent. So one cat goes into the area that the resident cat's been in, and let the resident cat investigate the room that the new cat's in. And then, usually that's a very positive way of introducing them, where they have time to get used to each other's scent first of all, and then the sight of each other.
Yeah.
It tends to be the most successful way to do it. It's not, guaranteed. Some cats just will not tolerate living with other cats, and it's important that we respect that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's really, really helpful, because I know, obviously, there's a plethora of information on the internet. Some good, some bad, some awful.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, I've seen all sorts where people have suggested, putting your cat in a carrier and then getting them used to the new cat by letting the new cat walk around them. If you think, if you're an animal trapped somewhere where you don't want to be, and you've got this scary thing
terrifying
in your new house, is a bit like, you know, I'm trying to think of an example with us, but, you know, being trapped in your house and then in a room and then someone's lurking outside, you know, you don't know them, you've never seen them before, not fun. You can't, you know, run outside and get some space and peace. So yeah,
absolutely. And then when you do introduce them, it's really important to have enough resources so that there's not going to be any competition, because again, that's a really big reason why cats will start to toilet around the house. If you've got sort of multiple cats and one litter tray, it can be a big issue.
Yeah.
Quite often you'll get sort of one cat sitting in front of the other and blocking access to the tray if the cats don't have a particularly good relationship with each other, or just one cat's used it and it's dirty and you haven't had time to scoop it yet, and the other cat doesn't want to use a dirty tray, understandably. So the general rule is always one resource plus one extra for the number of cats you've got. So for example, with me, with 5 cats, I've got at least 6 litter trays. I've actually got 8, but
yeah.
So yeah, you know, even if you've only got 1 cat, I would still always have 2 trays, just so that they've got options. Quite often, cats would prefer to pee in one tray and poo in another one. You might find that there's something going on. You know, if you've got children, maybe the toddler's playing next to one of the trays and the cat doesn't feel safe going in it, or you know, there could be a scary noise of workmen outside, or so if you've got options that they can take themselves off to another tray if they don't feel safe in one location for whatever reason, or you know, their access is blocked.
Yeah, because you want to be keeping them away from, like you've said, all of those things where you can, and away from windows. You know, you don't want tomcats or other cats looking in while your cat's doing their business.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if there is an issue with other cats looking in, it's quite often a good idea to put some screening on the windows. So you can get opaque film that you can just, it statically clings, you just spray some water on and it will cling to the window. Or you can even use, like, it's cheap and cheerful, but something like baking parchment.
Yeah, I've seen
Stuff
that.
up on the windows as well, just so that you can only need to put it on the bottom half of patio doors and windows, but just so that your cat doesn't feel overlooked if there are other cats sort of lurking around outside.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you ever noticed a cat sitting on a cat litter tray guarding it?
On top, sometimes that's another thing with the hooded ones. Sometimes you can get cats sitting on top of them and sort of paws hanging down, ready to swipe if another cat is going in or out. So yeah, that's another reason why potentially I would avoid a hooded tray.
Yeah. I think it's so hard because there's so much stuff on the market. What are your opinions on the automated trays? Like the self-cleaning?
Based on the fact that I've had rather a lot of clients come to me that their cats started peeing around the house or pooing around the house after getting the automated trays, I'm not a fan. A lot of cats seem to be quite scared of the sound of the mechanism, or the fact that, you know, it starts the cleaning process quite quickly after they've stepped out. So
yeah.
Also, I'm not a fan because you can't check their output. I mean, it's always, you know, a good idea to have a look and just check that you're not seeing any blood or any parasites, worms, things like that in your cat's pee or poo. You know, it's a really good indicator of their health. So I think, you know, to be able to look at it is quite important. I know it's not the most pleasant thing in the world. But,
for your cat's health. So you've had people come to you that have developed a urine litter. They've started peeing and maybe pooing outside of the tray after they've got this litter.
Yes.
This self-cleaning litter tray.
Robot. So, and it's really hard because obviously people pay a lot of money for them, so they don't really want to hear that it's an issue. But quite often I'll say to them, you know, put down another normal litter tray, and often they'll then find that the cat is choosing to use the old litter tray and isn't toileting around the house anymore, but they're not choosing to use the litter robot.
There's a few out there, isn't there? Litter robot, there's some other ones as well. I saw a really awful one which isn't, I mean, I don't like the litter robot, but there's another one that was on the market. Hopefully it's not anymore, but I think they've changed it different names, but actually shuts.
Oh gosh.
And cats have there's been reports sadly of cats being killed by them because it's like a screen that goes down and cats have got stuck, which is just horrific. So yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of these things that are invented, it's definitely for humans and not for cats.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? I know. And the litter you mentioned, the Nature's... Sorry, could you repeat
Almo
that?
Nature.
Almo
Yeah.
Nature. Do you find that helps block smells? Obviously, cleaning's imperative, but do you find...
Yeah, it is good. I find, obviously, again, scooping is the easiest way to keep smells to a minimum.
Yeah.
But no, I find a lot of the natural litters that are the plant-based fibres, they do absorb the smells. You obviously do need to scoop. But the clumping ones do seem to be better for odour control.
Yeah.
So I'd always, again, say avoid using any like odour control products, or you want to avoid that. Because that again can make the cat less likely to use the tray. They've got very sensitive noses, so those smells can be really overpowering for them.
Yeah, it's like Boots. I mentioned going to Boots at Christmas. The smell of the aftershave and the perfume, and I was like, and I have not got the sense of smell that a cat has. So God bless them. They must hate the smell of.
And again, so for cleaning the trays, you want to use a unscented product, ideally one that is designed for sort of veterinary use or pet use. There's a lot of very pleasantly scented to a lot of people's noses disinfection products and things out there, which for cats are really going to be very offensive to their sense of smell.
Avoid the lemon. Oh.
Yeah, definitely not the lemon. And also it's important to be aware of things like Dettol products contain phenols, which are toxic to cats. So
yes.
Avoid any detergents that turn the water milky. Tend to contain phenols, which are really highly toxic to cats. So avoid using them for sort of around your house or for using on the cat litter trays or anything like that.
Oh, there's some really wonderful stuff there. Thank you, Claire. Is there anything else you wanted to add? How can people find out more about you, for example? And is there anything else you wanted to add that you think?
So I think the other really important thing I'd say to people is if your cat has been peeing or pooing around the house, the cleaning protocol that you use is really important, because cats will keep going back to remark the places that they've peed or pooed sometimes, which is called middening. Again, that can be leaving a message to other cats that this is my territory. So always use an enzymatic cleaner, and that will actually break down the urine, or you can use like a 10% solution of biological washing powder in water. So sort of block and clean everything up first, then use the enzymatic cleaner, then go over it with just plain water. And then after that, you want to use isopropyl alcohol or surgical spirit, because that will break down the fatty acids. So that will help prevent them to go back and remark the area. A lot of people use things like bleach, which I wouldn't advise for two reasons. Firstly, cat urine contains ammonia, which can react with bleach and create a toxic gas called chloramine, which can cause respiratory problems or eye irritation. So you really don't want to be sort of mixing the two.
No.
And the other thing is the strong scent of it can cause the cat to come and remark. So you get into this cycle of marking and you cleaning up and then marking again.
Right.
So you definitely want to avoid that.
Yeah. That's so helpful.
But yeah, and then otherwise it's sort of litter box hygiene and making sure your cat's got a routine and choice and control. Those are kind of the things that cats really love, is to feel like they've got choice and control. So giving them options for where they toilet and making sure that as far as possible they've got a routine. So just being aware of any potential stressors. So if a new cat's moved into the environment or things like that, and your cat hasn't had a litter tray indoors before, then it's a good idea. I'd say it's always a good idea to give your cat a litter tray inside, so they've got that option.
Yeah, because of the weather changing, like it's freezing today,
exactly.
Isn't it?
Especially this time of year, they don't want to go out in the rain and the cold and the snow potentially.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. And where can people find out more about you, Claire?
So you can find me at www.catsatheart.com, or then I'm on all the usual social media channels at Cats at Heart. And I also write articles for various publications, so like The Guardian, Kinship and Pets Radar. You can find me popping up on there as well.
Get more awesome advice from Claire. Thank you so much, Claire.
Thanks very much for having me. Always love the opportunity to have a chat about cats.
Yeah.